with the mainstream media, the it's clear that their top focus isn't doing news. That's not what they wake up in the morning to do. That at least the people running these corporations. These are private corporations. At the end of the day, their goal is their motivation, their drive is just to make more money. That is basically what it comes down to. And this raises a lot of issues because these news outlets, these are supposed to be the quote authoritative sources. According to some people in our society, these are supposed to be where we're supposed to be able to go to get the straight facts, to get the information, so that we can the facts, like I said, to so that we're all on the same page, right? But when the news media has a bunch of conflicts of interest, and the people that they're supposed to be investigating, and the powerful institutions that they're supposed to be investigating, the powerful corporations they should be focusing on and informing their audience about, are also their sources of funding. Well, it completely taints the possibility that they would just be doing straight objective reporting on their sources of funding, because you don't bite the hand that feeds you, as the saying goes. One of the examples that I like to give about this is I live in Florida. Disney and Universal Studios, but mostly Disney, has a stranglehold on Florida politics and Florida news media. And ABC is like one of the big local news stations in the state. ABC is owned by Disney. So what I always say is, if you're waiting for ABC to do like some hard hitting investigative piece on the hellish conditions that Disney workers have to face, and the just rampant corruption and horrible shit that the corporation does in general. If you're waiting for ABC News to bring some hard hitting investigative piece on Disney, that's just not going to happen. They are too financially invested in that company, and maintaining that company's brand and that company's image, to ever do anything like that. And now we're seeing something even more alarming, I would say, when it comes to the vaccines. Because the media their role should be informing the public on what's actually happening with this pandemic, and informing people on all the information on when it comes to the vaccines that have been created to contain the virus or whatever. They should be presenting people with all the relevant information, so that people can make up their minds as to what's best for them. That's what they should be doing. But it seems, this is where the term conflict of interest comes into. It's hard to do that while they're also taking money, taking argument. It is unsure how much money they're taking from these pharmaceutical companies that are making these vaccines. It's unsure how much they're taking to do advertising for them. But it's a safe bet that they're taking millions of dollars from these pharmaceutical companies to do advertisements for the vaccines that they should be objectively reporting on. So Jimmy Dore actually did a segment on this on his show, and I'm just going to play a clip of that, because he goes through some of the articles that CNBC has published, basically doing uncritical propaganda on behalf of Pfizer, while they're being paid by Pfizer. So he goes through a decent list. So I'm just going to play that for you, and then we'll come back and break it down. So give me 1 second. I'm going to set that video up. Whoa.
So guess what? We know that the media is horrible because they're owned by the people they're supposed to be investigating and exposing, right? So that's why we have endless wars, $1 trillion military budgets, and we pay the highest double what it costs for healthcare in the rest of the world because our media is owned by the healthcare giants, the big pharma, and the military-industrial complex, right? So now they're not even trying to hide it, right? So here is this is a tweet from CNBC. This is a tweet from CNBC. It says, after delivering the first COVID-19 vaccine, Pfizer is uniquely positioned to advance mRNA, which could be a breakthrough for other infectious diseases, genetic diseases, and cancer. You see what it says right there? It says that's a paid post for Pfizer. CNBC. So I know you can sell cable space, but now they're selling their own Twitter feed. Isn't that kind of amazing? I think it's kind of stunning. And you wonder why mainstream news might not be quite objective when it comes to COVID? Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Well, get this. Pfizer CEO says third COVID vaccine dose likely needed within 12 months. That's because CNBC. So how much critical coverage do you think they're going to give Pfizer? Pfizer's literally paying their bills. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla predicts normal life will return within a year and adds we may need annual COVID shots. Oh, thank you, CNBC, for that uncritical headline. Pfizer says its COVID vaccine is safe and it generates robust immune response in kids ages 5 to 11. Thank you, CNBC. But I think I'm going to get my news maybe from somebody else.
All right, so again, Pfizer paying CNBC to run ads for them, and basically ever since we can tell from the articles that's been published from CNBC, they're also just doing uncritical propaganda for them, and like you see as you see in those articles, or at least the headlines from those articles, and if you read those articles, it's in there too. It's a whole lot of Pfizer says. Oh, the CEO says, and these executives say, and the Pfizer scientists say, oh, everybody needs a booster shot. I guess oops, what do you know? We got to do the thing that's going to make us billions of dollars for eternity. So it's a whole lot of Pfizer says and not, oh, here's the data. Oh, and also Pfizer has a history of lying for profit. Or, oh, Pfizer also has a history of manipulating data. No. It's none of that. It's just Pfizer says. And again, so the media is bought and paid for, and they're just going to give the message of whoever has the deepest pockets, whoever is willing to spend the most to influence their coverage. And of course, in this case, it's not regular people who might have concerns about these rushed vaccines. It's not regular people. It's even doctors who looked at the data and are concerned about the efficacy of these vaccines. Nope, that's not what CNBC is that's not the direction, the slant that CNBC goes with. It's Pfizer says, and whatever it is that the company paying us to do advertisements on this incredibly controversial and honestly consequential drug to the that's being distributed to millions of people around the world and injected into millions of people around the world. Instead of doing journalism and coming up with legit answers, we're just going to be doing uncritical and literal paid propaganda for these pharmaceutical companies. And again, so people have questions, right? And the distrust for the media and public health institutions, it is 100% earned. They did it to themselves. So even if you're one of those people who do, you support the vaccines, you think everybody should get vaccinated and all those things, and get vaccinated 6 times a day or whatever, and you're mad that enough people aren't taking the vaccine to your liking. Well, one of the reasons that is not because they're stupid dum dums who want to die or have a death wish or anything like that, or suicidal or anything you hear on CNBC or CNN or anything like that. There are a lot of people who are distrustful of the media and distrustful of them for good reason, because they've been lying this entire way through. I just did a video where the National Institute of Health, or segment where the National Institute of Health has come out and contradicted Dr. Fauci about whether or not the NIH was funding gain of function research in Wuhan, China, where they believe might have started the entire pandemic. So Dr. Fauci has been lying about the origins of the virus. And even in his own emails, he admitted that there was a good chance it can't leak from a lab. But he's been lying about it this entire time. And so now, again, you have him and then the public health officials who lied for Cuomo in New York, the manipulating data from the CDC. So all of these things build up trust. And, of course, the politicians. Nobody trusts the fucking politicians. And then the media literally getting paid to do advertisements. So now, again, back to the people who are skeptical about taking the vaccines. It's not their fault that they don't trust the media when you see shit like this. And for the people who and I get this all the time too, when I say, okay, there's a lot of distrust and earned distrust, and I laid the list of lies from Dr. Fauci. Oh, it's not just Dr. Fauci isn't the only person who's pushing these vaccines or who's telling us these vaccines are safe and suggesting these vaccines. A whole bunch of other doctors or public health organizations are suggesting it. And this is my disagreements and concerns with those public health institutions, namely the fact that they are all very political in nature, and they are willing to lie to the public about science in order to not antagonize the governments or the companies that are the sources of their funding. So the public health institutions, there's a crisis of credibility in the institutions, and it's not just Dr. Fauci. But they will always say, oh, yeah, Fauci's he's a liar. I don't like him either, okay? But the other doctors who pushing it, I said there's concern with other doctors. Oh, well, you mean to tell me that all the doctors, all the physicians in the country that are telling people to get vaccinated, they're in on they're in on like this big conspiracy? And it doesn't have to be that deep. It just could be, as we've learned, there are actual pressures, and in the from the societal pressures from the top down, and it's the medical community is not exempt from it. They one of the worst examples I've given, and it also comes back to the pharmaceutical industry, is the overprescription of drugs in this country. I wouldn't say that all these doctors are trying to kill people in this country or are actively trying to make their health worse, but all of the incentives in the system are telling them to do this, to prescribe these drugs in huge amounts and not really looking to any alternatives. So that's what most doctors end up doing. So, and there are many reasons for this. Some of it is financial incentives. Some doctors literally get a bonus when they sell people a specific prescription drugs. Some of it is they go to medical conferences and the drug is being advertised at the conferences. So there are legitimate pressures that come down onto people or these professionals to make them that drive them in a certain direction. And back to the conversation about the vaccines. Nobody's saying that we can't trust them at all, but at least acknowledge that there's something weird going on here, and it's being driven by the people making billions of dollars from this vaccine, and they are pushing it. And it seems like, regardless of whatever information comes out about a natural immunity or other pharmaceutical interventions or anything else that could possibly be viewed as an alternative, there's a huge pressure from the elites in the establishment to rule that out of the conversation. And then you go back to the media again, who's literally getting paid by these pharmaceutical companies. So how are people ever supposed to trust them? And anybody who's pretending like, oh well, you just these are just one-off instances, and you can't make conclusions about the vaccine because certain people lied here, certain people lied here. Of course, that's true, and I think everybody should look at the data and come to their conclusions by themselves. But the reality is, what it seems like a lot of people are doing is they're cherry picking the things that they like and the information that they trust from these institutions, but they want to. It's all right. It's basically as if somebody just took a giant shit on a plate of food, and instead of saying, "I don't want to eat this plate of food with shit on it," they're just like picking around the shit and like eating some other things on the plate. And what I'm basically saying is there's a giant pile of shit in this plate of food, and something is rotten to all hell here with the public health officials, the media, and the politicians. They've been lying about this pandemic the entire way through, for their own different reasons. And now the media is literally getting paid to do paid advertisements, to do propaganda for these companies that are profiting heavily from this thing. So I don't appreciate people talking to me like as if I'm stupid, and as if the billions of dollars that are in this that are revolving or moving around in this vaccination strategy or whatever it is, trying to act as if that has absolutely nothing to do with the direction that our government has gone into response to this pandemic is ridiculous. Because we all agree that money in politics, that money shapes politics and it shapes policy. And to think that, when it comes to this vaccine, everybody's just operating in good faith. Everybody's just operating off of what's in the best interest of the public, as if that has ever come above the interests of people who are looking to profit off of any given situation. It doesn't just have to be the pharmaceutical industry, but any industry that is heavily involved in politics. So all I did was all I wanted to say was point out the clear conflict of interest here between the media being paid to do propaganda for the pharmaceutical industries that they should be, or companies that they should be investigating. Doja says in 1983, our six media corporations were consolidated from 50 media companies. It's the illusion of choice. They control 90% of what we consume. I think it was 1993. But yeah, the Telecommunications Act that Bill Clinton signed was horrible for media. And it is true that a handful of companies owned by billionaires, like seven of them, control basically everything that's on TV, everything that's on the radio, everything that's in magazines and in newspapers. And that's crazy. That's crazy. They completely control the flow of information. So as soon as they decide, they all do it apparently, because I don't think CNBC is going to be the odd man out here. I think they're all going to be doing paid advertisements for these pharmaceutical companies when it comes to these vaccines, if they aren't doing them already. But So when it the group of media is so small, or the sources of media is so small, and they can just decide one day, all right, so we're going to take money from the people making these vaccines, and now they have millions of dollars invested in people just being injected with this vaccine, regardless of if it's the most effective strategy or not. They just That's where the money's going to be coming in. So, like I said, it's dangerous that a handful of companies have that amount of power over the direction of conversation on such an important issue. Where Pilgrims to CNBC is all about the stock market and capitalism writ large. It'd be surprising if they didn't plaster their posts like NASCAR drivers. All right, so yes, it is that true that CNBC does do a whole bunch of propaganda for corporations. That's true, but and we all just kind of assume, oh, that's CNBC, so that's just the way it is. But even if you are like a business network, there's a whole bunch of business news you could cover from the perspective of like investigative journalism or being adversarial. So just the genre itself doesn't just have to be one rank like pro capitalism propaganda fest, but it is that way because of the advertisements. And CNBC is more. It's just more rah pro capitalism because, like I said, it's specifically around business, but all of them are rah pro capitalism because of the money that they're taking from advertisers. It's just that if any other news network was talking about business and getting as much money as from corporations as they normally do, they would just be doing a bunch of pro capitalism shit like they do now. But it's just they have to talk about other topics because it's not just strictly business that they talk about.